assigned to protect a stranger. Reed Marlowe didn't want to be on this job. He had fought in 2 wars, lost friends, and carried more scars than he cared to count. After everything, he just wanted peace. But peace didn't pay the bills. So when a private agency offered him a good paycheck to protect an alien diplomat, he said yes. Now standing on the platform of Dock 17, Reed waited as the ship arrived. It was smooth and silver, shaped like a stingray, glowing with soft blue lights. As the ramp lowered, 4 tall alien guards in armor stepped out, and behind them, she appeared, Valera of the Ilari. She was graceful, with deep violet skin and long silver hair that moved like smoke. Her robes shimmered like stars. Her eyes, large, glowing, unreadable, scanned the dock without emotion. Reed had seen aliens before, but something about her made him feel out of place, like he didn't belong in her world. A short, thin man in a suit walked over and whispered, "That's her. You're her personal security for this whole diplomatic visit. Stay close, do not speak unless spoken to. And whatever happens, do not touch her. Ilari protocol is strict." Reed gave a short nod. Got it. Their first meeting was cold. Valera didn't look at him when he greeted her. She didn't reply. She simply walked ahead, letting her royal guards lead the way. Reed followed at a short distance, keeping an eye on her back, her sides, the shadows. They traveled through the trade station quietly. Valera was there to negotiate with the Galactic Assembly, a peaceful mission. But Reed's instincts screamed trouble. He noticed things others didn't. A flicker of a cloak, a man standing too still, a pair of eyes watching too long. They entered the station's grand market. The crowd parted around Valera like water. Some bowed, others just stared. Reed stayed close, eyes sharp. He could feel something was wrong. The air was tense. Then he saw him, a man in a worker's jacket moving oddly, nervous hands, eyes fixed on Valera, and something hidden under his coat. Reed moved fast. "Down!" he shouted. Before anyone could react, the man pulled a weapon, a pulse rifle modified. It lit up with a high-pitched whine. Valera froze. Her guards turned too late. Reed didn't think. He threw himself forward, straight in front of her, just as the gun fired. Yacked! The blast hit Reed square in the side. Pain exploded in his ribs. He collapsed, blood soaking his shirt. He hit the ground hard. Screams filled the air. The attacker was tackled by guards, but Reed didn't see that. All he saw was Valera kneeling beside him, her cold mask gone, her glowing eyes wide with shock. "You protected me?" she said softly. He coughed, blood on his lips. "It's the job, lady." Valera did something no Ilari had done in centuries. She touched him. Her hands, glowing with soft light, pressed against his wound. Her guards shouted in panic, "Highborn, stop, that's forbidden." But she didn't stop. She whispered in her alien tongue. Her hands trembled. The light from her palms grew brighter, warmer. Reed could feel the pain dulling. His vision started to clear. "Why?" he asked. "You gave your blood for me," she said. "The rules don't matter anymore." In that moment, for the first time, Reed saw something real in her eyes, not just power, not just beauty, but humanity. Then his world went dark. Reed was slipping away. The floor felt cold under him. His side burned like fire. The sound of shouting. Weapons drawn, guards rushing. None of it mattered now. His breath came out in sharp gasps. Then something strange happened. Valera dropped to her knees beside him. For someone so royal, so untouchable, it shocked everyone. Her glowing eyes were wide. Her long silver hair brushed the floor as she leaned closer. She reached out, not with power or command, but with trembling hands. Her voice shook as she said, "Stay with me." The alien guards were frozen. Ilari, protocol was strict. No physical contact with outsiders, especially not healing, especially not royalty touching a human. Her aide gasped, "Highborn, don't. If the council sees." Valera didn't even look at them. Her hands glowed brighter as she pressed them against Reed's wound. A soft light pulsed, slowly at first, then faster. Alien magic, ancient and forbidden, flowed into the human man. His heartbeat steadied. His breaths grew deeper, but the healing came at a cost. Valera's skin began to dull, her body shaking as she poured energy into him. It was clear. She was sacrificing something, her strength, her safety, to save a man she barely knew. Reed's eyes fluttered open. He looked up into her face. "You're still here?" he whispered. Valera smiled faintly. "Yes. You bleed for me. I will not walk away." He blinked, confused. "Why would you risk it? I'm just a bodyguard." "You're not just anything," she said. You didn't hesitate. Their moment was quiet, like time had paused around them. Around them, guards and soldiers watched, unsure whether to interrupt or bow. Something bigger than law was happening, something no one could stop. A few minutes later, Reed was carried into a medical room aboard the diplomatic ship. Alien doctors took over, finishing what Valera started. They patched the wound, sealed, broken vessels, stabilized his vitals. He was alive, but unconscious. Valera stood outside the door, her energy drained. Her aide pleaded, "You've violated 3 major laws. The council—" "I know," she said coldly. "They may strip your title, exile you, even imprison you." Valera looked at the door where Reed lay, then back at her aide. "Let them." In the silence of the ship's upper deck, Valera stared out at the stars. She remembered everything clearly. The moment the weapon fired, the way Reed threw himself in front of her, the way his blood hit the floor. She had met many humans before. Most were selfish, some were clever. But this one, Reed, had been brave. No deals. No orders. He had simply acted, and for the first time in Valera's long, carefully controlled life, someone had chosen her safety over their own. That meant something, more than any law. Back in the medical chamber, Reed stirred again. His body was weak, but his mind was racing. He remembered her voice. He remembered her touch. And he remembered the warm light like being held by the sun itself. He looked around. Sleek alien tech, soft hums. He wasn't in a hospital. He was in her ship. A single thought hit him hard. She broke the law for me. As footsteps approached, the door slid open. Valera stepped in. They looked at each other for the first time, not as bodyguard and diplomat, not as human and alien, but as 2 people whose fates had now become tangled forever. "You should rest," she said softly. "I should thank you," Reed answered, struggling to sit up. "You already did," Valera whispered. "You just didn't use words." Reed sat on the soft edge of the alien medical bed, shirt off, fresh bandages wrapped around his side. The pain was dull now, not gone but no longer blinding. He stared at his own hands, still shaking a little. He had been a soldier. He had been shot before. But never had he woken up on a ship filled with golden light, royal silence, and an alien who had broken her planet's law to save him. The door opened with a whisper. Valera entered, calm as ever. But the tension in her shoulders gave her away. "You're healing," she said softly. "Thanks to you," Reed replied, his voice rough. "I thought touching a human was forbidden." "It is," she said, walking closer. "And healing one? Even worse. I've broken a sacred rule, one that has stood for hundreds of years." Reed blinked. "So, what happens now?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to the window. Stars passed silently beyond the glass. Her voice was steady, but something in her eyes was restless. "The council knows," she said. "There was a recording. My guards sent it in. They're required to. A trial will happen. Soon." "A trial?" Reed frowned. "For saving me?" "For touching you," she corrected. "For choosing you over law." Silence fell between them. Reed scratched his beard and sighed. Then I guess I've caused trouble. Valera turned, her eyes locking onto his. You didn't cause it, you exposed it. Exposed what? She stepped closer. That we, the Ailari, hide behind laws that no longer serve us. We worship tradition more than life. You took a shot meant for me. You did what no Ailari warrior would have done, and I couldn't let you die. Reed stared at her, surprised by the fire in her voice. There was more emotion now. Less of the cold diplomat. More of the woman. I didn't do it for glory, he muttered. I didn't think. I just saw the weapon. And still, you chose to act. Without knowing who I was. Without knowing I could save you. He gave a small smile. I didn't know you'd break intergalactic law for me either. That made her laugh. Quiet, almost sad. Later that night, Valera stood before a shimmering screen, speaking to the council through a live transmission. Alien faces, old and sharp, stared down at her. Highborn Valera, one of them said, coldly. Do you admit to touching and healing the human? I do, she said, standing tall. And do you admit to violating Article 7 of Royal Conduct by using sacred Ailari energy on an outsider? I do. Then you know the punishment. Valera said nothing. The council went quiet, then added something unexpected. Unless the human himself appears and makes a formal request for forgiveness on your behalf. Her eyes widened. That hasn't been allowed in generations. We will allow it once to test the bond between you. The screen flickered off. Reed didn't wait. When she told him about the council's strange offer, he stood up, still in pain, and said, Then let's go. You would do this? She asked. Speak before my people? Face their judgment? I bled for you, he said. And you risked everything to keep me breathing. I'm not about to let you face this alone. She stared at him for a long moment. No words. Just a slow, respectful nod. The next day they left the ship together side by side, not as protector and VIP, but as two people bound by something the galaxy didn't understand. As their ship entered orbit over the glowing Ailari capital, news spread fast. A human. Entering the Hall of Judgment. An alien royal, willing to fall for saving him. And behind the closed doors of the Grand Court, one truth was rising. The law had been broken. But maybe the law was wrong. The Ailari High Hall was like a temple in the sky. Its tall silver towers floated above clouds, glowing with soft green light. Inside, the grand chamber stretched wide with floating platforms, humming lights, and a silence so heavy it could crush bones. Only the most sacred trials took place here. And today, for the first time in Ailari history, a human had entered. First, Reed Marlowe stood in the center of the circular court, flanked by guards. His body was still healing, but his eyes were sharp, filled with quiet fire. Beside him stood Valera, dressed in royal white robes, without her crown. By tradition, she had removed it before trial, offering herself as one under judgment. Voice echoed above them, "Begin the inquiry." A dozen ancient alien faces appeared as glowing projections above them. These were the Ailari Council of Balance, keepers of tradition, law, and royal bloodlines. The center voice, deep and cold, spoke first. Valera of House Kelrine, do you accept the charges of law-breaking by touching and healing a foreigner? I do, she said clearly. Do you accept that you acted with full awareness of the law? I do. And this human, the one you saved, is he aware of what you risked? I am, Reed said, stepping forward. And I came here to speak. The hall went silent. It was not common for outsiders to address the council, but they allowed it. Reed looked up at the glowing faces. He wasn't trained in speeches. He had no royal blood, no status, just truth. I didn't ask her to save me, he began. I was just doing my job, protecting someone. But when I was dying, she broke your laws to save my life. He paused, his voice steady. Where I come from, that's not a crime. That's called honor, the council murmured. One of them asked, would you say she was Manipulated by emotion? That you took advantage? Reed's eyes narrowed. No, I didn't even think she liked me. But when I fell, she didn't care about the rules. She cared about life. Another counselor leaned forward. Would you bleed for her again? Reed didn't hesitate. I'd do it twice over. Valera looked at him, eyes softening. That moment, caught in silence, felt like a storm before the flood. Something had shifted, not just in the court, but in the entire culture watching them from orbit broadcasts across the galaxy. Tradition was cracking. Back in the shadows of the chamber, others were watching too. Valera's older cousin, Lord Maltran, whispered to a fellow noble, "This human, he speaks like a warrior, like one of us." "Dangerous," the other replied. "He'll change things." "Maybe it's time things changed," Maltran murmured. As the court ended, the council declared a short recess before final judgment. Reed and Valera were led into a quiet, private room. She sat down slowly, clearly exhausted. That was brave. He sat beside her, wincing slightly from his wound. "So now what? They exile you?" "Maybe, or strip my name, or ban me from ever returning home." Reed leaned forward. "Why didn't you stay silent? You could have blamed it on instinct, shock, anything." She looked at him. "For once in my life, I wanted to make a choice, not as a diplomat, not as royalty, just as me. And I chose you." The door buzzed. A guard stepped in. "The council is ready for judgment." Valera stood. Reed rose too. No matter the decision, they would face it together. And outside that chamber, millions across the galaxy watched their screens, holding their breath. Because what happened next could change the laws between humans and aliens forever. The great chamber of the Ilari Council fell quiet. Every light dimmed. The floating platforms turned toward the center. At the heart stood two figures, one alien, one human. Valera, royal-born, accused of breaking sacred law, and Reed Marlowe, a battle-scarred human who had no place in this world, yet now stood at its very center. The lead counselor, an elder named Solreen, spoke first. "This is unprecedented. A human, addressing the court in defense of one of our highborn." Reed looked up at the glowing figure and simply said, "I didn't come to defend her title. I came to honor her choice." A whisper passed through the room. Many leaned forward. The recording drones adjusted angles. Billions of beings across the stars were watching now. "She saved my life," Reed said, voice steady. "Not because she had to or because of some order. She broke your rules. She gave up her safety, her name, her future for me. I'm not royalty. I'm not rich. I'm just a soldier, a bodyguard. And I didn't expect anything from her. I never asked her to risk her place in this world." Reed paused. His voice softened. "But she did, because she saw my life as worth saving." One of the younger counselors, a tall woman with sapphire skin, leaned forward. "And you believe this moment, this single choice, should rewrite centuries of law?" Reed nodded. "If a law punishes compassion, maybe it needs rewriting." That sentence hit the chamber like thunder. Even the older counselors shifted uncomfortably. Some frowned, others looked thoughtful. Then another voice rose, deep and bitter. It was Lord Verrill, Valera's political rival. "Or perhaps," he said sharply, "this human has bewitched our highborn with earth emotion, impulsive, messy, dangerous." Reed stepped forward. "You think bleeding on the floor for her was emotional manipulation?" He pulled back the side of his robe, showing the sealed wound over his ribs. "I didn't know her when I took the hit, but I knew she was someone's daughter, someone's hope. That was enough for me." He turned to face them all. "So I ask, you not as a human, not as her bodyguard, but as someone who believes in right and wrong, why should she be punished for choosing life over law?" The silence that followed was long. Then Valera spoke. Calm. Clear. "If my actions have shamed the court, then I accept the judgment. But if showing mercy, Healing a protector is considered a crime. Then perhaps I am guilty with pride. The council turned inward. Whispers floated among them. Hands moved in glowing gestures. Light shifted. Finally, Solreen raised his hand. We have reached a verdict. Reed's fingers clenched. Valera kept her gaze forward. The lights above pulsed blue. In light of the unique circumstances and by the voice of the people across dozens of allied worlds, we issue a conditional pardon. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Valera blinked. Conditional? Solreen nodded. You are free. Your title remains. But from this moment forward, the law must change. Touch between species, when done with consent and cause, shall no longer be a crime. Reed's mouth parted in disbelief. The elder added, However, this ruling applies to you alone. You have 1 year to help shape the policy before it becomes galactic law, or it will be undone. Valera stepped forward. And the human? Baraya. Council glanced at Reed. Solreen nodded. He may remain at your side, as guest, or something more. Eyes turned to them both. Reed looked at Valera. So, you still want me around? She didn't smile, but her glowing eyes held warmth. Yes. Not as a shield, but as a voice beside mine. As they left the chamber side by side, crowds erupted across space stations. Screens lit up. News spread across systems. Ilari law changed by a human's blood. Bodyguard turns courtroom into revolution. An alien chose to break the law and found something worth breaking for. The court had spoken. The law had bent, but not broken. Valera was pardoned, conditionally. She could keep her title, her name, her power. But for 1 year she would carry the burden of rewriting the law she defied. And beside her stood the Abidam, man who forced the stars to listen. Reed Marlowe. He never meant to change the galaxy. He only meant to protect her. Now he was at the center of it all. They walked through the long crystal corridor of the Ilari Hall, high above the clouds. The quiet between them wasn't cold anymore. It was deep, full of everything that hadn't been said. Finally, Reed broke the silence. You know they didn't really forgive you, right? Valera gave a small nod. They gave me a clock, not freedom. They want to see if we fail. She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. Then let's not fail. Later that night, in a private wing of the palace, Valera met with the inner court. Dozens of high-ranking Ilari nobles gathered, most of them tense, guarded. Lord Varel, bitter as ever, stood first. We will not allow humans to touch our traditions just because you formed an attachment to one. Valera stared him down. It was not attachment, it was a choice to protect life over rules. And when this fails, he snapped. Then I will step down, she said calmly, and I will leave this world behind. I will walk with the man who bled for me, and never return. Gasps spread across the room. Meanwhile, Reed wasn't resting. A soft chime rang in his guest suite. The door opened and in walked a young Ilari student, nervous, wide-eyed. You're the human? Reed raised a brow. Depends who's asking. I've studied Earth, but I've never met someone like you. You bled for her, and then you stood before the council. Do all humans do that? Reed smiled tiredly. Only the stupid ones. The boy grinned. Then I want to be stupid too. Reed's expression changed. That wasn't just admiration. It was the beginning of influence, the kind of influence that changed worlds. The next day, Valera stood before the High Law Forum, the body tasked with drafting new legal boundaries across species. Physical contact across species, she said, will no longer be judged by fear, but by intent and respect. We will build bridges, not walls. Some elders resisted, others nodded, but none ignored the man who stood silently behind her. A human, once an outsider, now a symbol. That night, back on the royal balcony under alien stars, Reed leaned on the edge and looked out. Feels like everything's moving too fast, he said. Valera stepped beside him. It is. Do you regret saving me? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I regret not knowing your name before I risked everything. He laughed. It's Reed. She held out her hand. Then let me say this properly. Thank you, Reed. He shook her hand gently. You're welcome, Valera. And for once, the moment wasn't about rules or history, just two people in the stars. But elsewhere, danger still brewed. A secret message was sent from the shadows of the council chamber to an unknown recipient. The human remains a threat. The bond is growing. If we cannot stop her, then remove him. The sun never truly set on the Ilari capital. It only shifted colors, painting the sky in soft blues and golden whites. But tonight, everything felt darker. Inside the royal palace, Reed Marlowe stood in silence, his back to the glass as he listened to the words Valera never wanted to say. There's a bounty, she whispered. Not official, not public, but someone wants you removed quietly. Reed didn't move. Let me guess, council members, who still think I'm a threat? She nodded once. Some fear change, others fear you, he sighed. And you? Valera looked at him. I fear losing what we've built. It had been just over a week since the council ruling. In that time, Reed had walked through halls where humans were never allowed. He sat in meetings, spoke to alien children, even shared stories with Ilari scholars. But change, even when welcomed by the people, was a threat to those who held power. So they tried the oldest tactic. Remove the symbol before it becomes a movement. Reed was ready to face them. To fight. To protect her again. But Valera surprised him. She brought him to the hangar. A small silver ship waited with its engines warm. I'm leaving, she said simply. What? They think exiling me will stop the change. Let them believe it. You'd leave your title? Your world? She looked at him. I already made my choice, Reed. I chose you when I broke the law. I chose you in the council hall. I'm choosing you now, not as a diplomat, but as a woman who wants freedom. He stared at her, unsure what to say. I don't belong in your world, he finally said. She stepped forward. Then let's build one of our own. As the sun shifted to soft pink, the ship lifted into the sky. Valera sat in the pilot seat. Reed beside her. No guards, no court, just stars ahead. He chuckled. You sure this isn't kidnapping? She smiled. You're free to leave after you fix the navigation, he smirked. Then I guess I'm staying. News spread quickly across the systems. Royal Ilari leaves home for unknown space. Alien noble and human bodyguard vanish together. Love or rebellion, galactic debate heats up. But those who watched closely noticed something more. Laws began to change. Not everywhere. But in small corners of the galaxy, alien races started talking to humans with less fear. New diplomatic paths opened. Valera and Reed had become more than symbols. They had become a beginning. On a quiet moon. Weeks later, a child approached them, eyes wide. Are you the human who bled for the alien queen? Reed crouched down. No, he said with a wink. I'm the guy she kidnapped. The child laughed. Valera stood nearby, watching them, and whispered, You're changing the galaxy one terrible joke at a time. He looked back at her. And you're rewriting it, one brave choice at a time. In exile, they found something greater than power. They found freedom. They found each other. And together they proved something the galaxy would never forget. Sometimes breaking the law is the first step to making a better one.